Welcome to the Browns Countdown 2018 season preview. 53 men have earned their stripes and are now officially Cleveland Browns. We take a look at this new roster remade by General Manager Jon Doss with in-depth previews of each position group. The Browns season starts on Sunday against the Steelers, and we take a look at that matchup, the AFC North, and the entire schedule as it's time now for the Browns to get to winning.
Well, the countdown is on tonight, the true start to week one of the 2018 NFL season, meaning we're just 3 days away from kickoff at First Energy Stadium when the Browns welcome in the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm Jon Doss, and this is the Browns Countdown season preview on News 5, the official television home of the Cleveland Browns, and that means we get our pick when it comes to analysis, and typically top two picks in town. Nathan Zegura, Browns insider, Dustin Fox from 92.3 The Fan. Guys, I would say that it's hard to believe that we're already here. We're already to this point in the regular season, but let's be honest. I mean, we've been covering this team now for months, and we're ready to get going.
Absolutely, and it's finally an opportunity to put the talk to a rest and get out there and get action. The only thing that's going to change anything for this Cleveland Browns franchise is to win games, and that first opportunity against the Steelers on Sunday.
And what a perfect opportunity against your division rival, a team that has had so much success against you over the years, and now a chance to get off the schneid, as they say, and get a win on Sunday. And so many storylines going into this game. Obviously, we're talking about the rival, but the Le'Veon Bell stuff is going to be a factor.
Yep.
And the fact that the players themselves, the Cleveland Browns players, are talking about this game as if it's a playoff game.
See if the victory fridges can open this weekend.
That's right. I'm thirsty.
Everybody's already ready. They might open one way or the other, but we're hoping that they open for the right reason. What a preseason it was. There's been lots of optimism around this team really since the beginning of the offseason with the additions of Tyrod Taylor, Jarvis Landry, Carlos Hyde, Demarius Randall, all those guys. And you know what? We saw flashes of what could be a really exciting team this preseason.
Yeah, when the starters were on the field, they were up 19-3. They outscored their opponents 19-3, and Jon Doss remade this roster. 60% of the guys here are new. And listen, when you were 0-16 the year before, it's probably not a bad idea to retool things. But I thought we saw dominant defense. They didn't give up a touchdown. They even scored 2 points as a defense. We saw the running game with Carlos Hyde get going. Tyrod Flash throwing the football. You saw pieces of everything you needed to see, but now it's time to put it all together.
Yeah, and a lot of people will talk about last year's team and the 0-16 season and say, well, how did these players get beyond that? And it's a good point by you. A lot of these guys weren't here.
They're not here.
And so they're
didn't
coming
feel
from
0-16.
different environments. They didn't feel the 0-16, so it does feel a little bit different now. Hugh Jackson's still here, but you've got a new offensive coordinator in Todd Haley and a ton of new weapons, especially on the offensive side of the football, that I think have people really excited.
3-1. They lost that one preseason game, and you know what? We're okay with that because we know they were 4-0 last year, and we know what happened in the regular season.
Yeah, the year before that, they were 0-4. That has no bearing on anything. One thing just to kind of highlight how different this football team is. You look at the roster the Browns took into week one against the Steelers last year. There isn't a quarterback that was on that roster that's on this roster. There isn't a wide receiver that was on that roster because Hollywood Higgins had been cut at that time that's on this roster, and there's only one cornerback that was on that roster that's on this one. Those are the three areas Jon Doss really wanted to address. Quarterback, receiver, defensive backfield. He did all of those. It's a completely different football team.
I'm glad you mentioned Rashard Higgins because we're going to transition into training camp. And he was one of the biggest stars in Berea during training camp. They had a lot of tough decisions to make. You guys have been talking about all preseason that typically when you were cut from the Browns the last couple of years, that meant your season was probably over. That wasn't the case this year. The Browns had a lot of difficult decisions to make.
They had difficult decisions, and you saw guys get picked up right after they were cut by the Browns, many of them finding new homes. I'd have to say, to me, the biggest surprise was Jamie Meter. And it's one of those things, you know, a guy who's worked so hard, a local guy, literally had a hand in the only win the Browns have had the last 2 seasons. And he was one of the guys that didn't even dress against the Lions. And so when that happens, you think you feel pretty good. I actually talked to him on the field, and I said, it looks so good to see you not in pads. And he kind of was like, who would have thought I'd be one of those guys now? And then he makes the 53. Carl Davis becomes available, and all of a sudden, Jamie Meter is no longer a Brown.
Why do you think they decided to go after Davis over a guy like Jamie Meter?
Because Davis has that athletic profile, 6'5", 320,
upside and all that.
Started 9 games a year ago for the Ravens. And the harsh reality of the situation is there are guys that Browns fans know very well and liked, but they were all on 0-16 and 1-15 teams. Not good enough.
One of the questions I had, if a guy was on the bubble, we saw it with Carl Nassib too, if a guy was on the bubble, could make the team, could not make the team, and was on this roster the last couple of seasons. Do you cut ties with him for culture reasons? Because all they've known is losing here in Cleveland. Do you cut ties with those guys, or am I making too much of that?
I don't think you cut ties with somebody because of culture. Sure. Just because somebody was here doesn't mean that guy can't fit in with the new coaches and the new staff. I do think that there's part of the regime, the front office, that does want to get their players in. They want to be able to get their guys. So there's not that connection because they didn't draft those guys. So we'll see how that goes. But like Carl Nassib's a guy that you talk about. He wasn't picked by Jon Dorsey, but was a very productive player for the Browns, and you thought he had a shot to make the team. He gets cut on the final cut-down day and ends up in Tampa Bay.
Well, you look at the guys they brought in, too. I think Jon Dorsey, in addition to wanting to have his guys, I think he has an athletic profile. Carl Davis is a significant upgrade as an athlete over Jamie Meter. Yeah. Devereaux Lawrence is an upgrade as an athlete over Caleb Brantley. And then they bring in Ohedibo. He is an upgrade over Carl Nassib. I think these are guys that they look at this team and they say, okay, these are the kinds of players we want. This is what we want our defensive ends to look like. This is what we want our defensive tackles to look like. And they found guys who fit that profile. And you look at Carl Davis, he was the most claimed guy around the league after the 53-man cutdown. So he was a guy that a lot of teams in the NFL wanted. As I said, started 9 games for a Ravens defense that we all know was pretty darn good last year.
And speaking of Jon Dorsey, you'd be hard-pressed to find a general manager in the NFL that has been more active than the Browns GM this offseason. And Jon Dorsey is ready for this team to take the field for real against Pittsburgh on Sunday.
These are the 2018 Cleveland Browns, and this is kind of what you've been building towards since the start of the new season, which was January for us, and then all the hard work and execution of those plans that were laid out from the hard work. And here's your team, and I couldn't be happier from when we left training camp and the preseason games. I couldn't be happier where we are to date right now, and now I can't wait to kick this thing off in a couple days here.
And we couldn't be happier to be the official home of the Cleveland Browns again this year. Remember, live on Sunday, the Browns countdown from 11 to noon. And before that, Browns All Access at 10:30. We've got you covered all the way up until kickoff of the Browns season opener. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about 2 of the positions that have seen the greatest change, that we're probably most excited about: quarterback and wide receiver. That's coming up next in the Browns countdown season preview. It's the Browns Countdown Season Preview. I'm Jon Doss with Nathan Zegura and Dustin Fox. Guys, it's the position that we've been talking about really since the beginning of the offseason, when from Buffalo, Tyrod Taylor came, and all of a sudden that quarterback room completely different than it was last year.
Yeah, 3 guys out, 3 new guys in. You talk about Tyrod Taylor, who comes to this team. This is a guy that's won at least 7 games in each of the last 3 seasons. And for the Browns, the biggest issue last year, Dustin, turnovers. They threw 27 interceptions. Tyrod's thrown 16 in the last 3 seasons combined. I think it's huge for the Browns to have him here as the starter before it's time for 6 to take over.
And that's why Hugh Jackson and company want him to start the season, because they do not want to see what happened last year. Kaiser led the league in interceptions. It was a disaster. It was a situation that was very tough for the young quarterback to be put into, obviously, and this is going to be completely different. Tyrod, as you mentioned, does not turn the ball over. He's efficient. He's a leader. Maybe more importantly than anything, he's a leader, because this team has not had leadership from that position, gosh, since Bernie Kosar? I don't know.
I mean, when's the last time?
20 years?
When's the last time a Browns quarterback was named a team captain?
Yeah.
I mean, it has been a long, long time, and Tyrod did get that honor from his teammates.
And this is crazy, and we looked this up statistically, just from a win-loss standpoint and stats-wise. Tyrod Taylor is the best quarterback the Browns have had since Bernie Kosar.
Yes.
In 1993, guys.
By a wide margin.
A quarter century.
And it's not a new situation. I covered Tyrod when he was in Buffalo, and they were dealing with the same thing. They hadn't had a good quarterback since Jim Kelly. Tyrod comes in, he wins 7 games, and then he takes the team to the postseason for the first time in 2 decades. But still, it felt like he outwore his welcome there in Buffalo. But you know what? We're happy to have him. And so is Todd Haley, because of the leadership that Tyrod Taylor provides in that quarterback room.
Tyrod has been very exciting to be around. You know, from day one, it became very clear that he is worried about one thing: football, number one, and finding ways to help us win. And it carries over, not only on the field, but spills over into the locker room, meeting rooms. Really, how he handles himself has been very impressive and very encouraging, because when you have a young team that hasn't experienced a lot of success, I think the leadership is very, very critical, and and he's the guy at the front of that.
All right, so Tyrod Taylor, he's the starting quarterback right now. Hugh Jackson has made that clear since he got to town. But let's be clear, the future belongs to the #1 overall pick, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield looked very good throughout this preseason, earned rave reviews, his pocket presence, his command in the huddle, which you really got to see on Hard Knocks. I love the way he went in there and took charge. He was successful every single game. And here's a little fun fact. In the last preseason game, which he started, the Browns scored on each of their first 3 possessions. The last time a Browns team scored on each of their first 3 possessions, 2 years ago when they beat the Chargers.
Oh,
so it
that is a fun fact.
It is a fun fact. So I think he's done a great job. You've got a great setup now with Tyrod, your starter, Baker, the future, and then you've got Drew Stanton, who's worked with 3 #1 overall picks in the past there to help mentor him during the season.
I thought the Hard Knocks All Access, you got the chance to follow Baker and see his command of the huddle was phenomenal. I didn't know how great he was in that huddle. I mean, you look at Oklahoma, and we knew he was a great leader, and everyone responded to him. But actually seeing him do it in an NFL game, he looked like a veteran out there. I know he's against the twos at times, but for the most part, he was in command. His pocket presence, as you point out, was something that was off the charts. We've seen all the breakdowns of how he kind of looks like Drew Brees in the pocket at times, was phenomenal. I wish we'd get a chance to see him play a little bit more football, but we're going to probably have to wait a couple weeks.
Yeah, and hopefully
a few weeks or half a season.
Well, if Hugh Jackson gets his way,
because if we're winning, we're going to wait. But his time it's no doubt going to come. And you talk about the footwork, the accuracy, the decision-making, all the hallmarks of a successful quarterback in today's NFL were absolutely there with Baker Mayfield.
But make no mistake, guys, he's going to play this year. I guarantee. I will bet anything.
And it's going to be because the Browns are up by 30 over the Steelers on Sunday. You know what else helps a quarterback?
Preach it. Come on.
Having guys to throw to, like Jarvis Landry, Josh Gordon. This may very well be, as Josh Gordon said during OTAs, maybe this is the most talented wide receiving core in the NFL.
It certainly has the potential to get there. Josh Gordon has looked great at practice this week. He's feeling 100%. Jarvis Landry, more catches than anyone in NFL history in his first 4 years. And that comment I made earlier about the change in the wide receiving room. Last year, you faced the Steelers in week 1 with your top 3 receivers being Kenny Britt, Corey Coleman, and Ricardo Lewis. Now it's Josh Gordon, Jarvis Landry, and the guy you see right there, Antonio Callaway, who many think is a first-round talent in his own right.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what these guys can do, because Kenny Britt and Coleman,
not in the league right now.
And
neither of them.
Ricardo Lewis, I mean, who's out with an injury. Yeah, this is a completely revamped group, guys, and yeah, it's great on paper to say all this stuff, but we have to see it. We have to see these guys play out. And Josh Gordon, to me, is the wild card here, because if he is 100% Josh Gordon, he'll lead the league in receiving. He did it in 14 games, guys, a few years back. So this is one of the most talented guys you have in all of the league. Can you count on him, though? That's my biggest question mark.
Yeah, it's certainly the best crop that Tyrod Taylor has had, better than any of those receivers that he had. Oh, absolutely. I got to ask you quickly about the tight end room. People have been looking for David Njoku to take a big step, and he looked like he did it this preseason.
I thought so. You know, I thought last year he really had a strong rookie campaign, finding the end zone several times. But this year, I look for him to take the next level. He looks more confident. He had the drop issue early in training camp, but it seems to maybe solve that a little bit. But this is a guy that I believe could be a top tight end in the National Football League, just from a talent standpoint. His athleticism is unbelievable. He's a freak of nature. And I truly do believe, guys, and I drafted him in my fantasy team. That tells you how high I think of David Njoku.
Yeah,
where did you draft him?
Probably reached a little bit, because I had my glasses on.
That's right.
It was like the 7th round or something.
Starting tight end caliber is what you're saying in your league, and you can see why. Think about, we just talked about Gordon on one side, Landry on the other. Defenses are going to account for those guys. You're going to get a lot of one-on-ones for David Njoku, and you saw what he did to the Giants when they tried to put a linebacker on him in the preseason. He's a mismatch guy, and one guy we haven't seen much of at all is Seth DeVal. He was the Browns' leading receiver on third downs a year ago. He's a mismatch guy, a former wide receiver in college. They're excited to get him back. And then you add in Fells, who's a huge red zone target, but also a great blocker. You've got a pretty complete tight end room now.
In the trenches, things are going to be interesting. Offensive line, not a lot of experience. Defensive line, look at it, maybe one of the best bunches in the group. That is coming up next on the Browns Countdown. Man, if that doesn't get you jacked up for football on Sunday, right? Browns Countdown, Jon Doss, Nathan Zegura, Dustin Fox. Well, you got to block to make everything else happen, right?
That's sexy, buddy.
Of course,
that's right.
The Browns' offensive line, though, right? Yeah. Joe Thomas retires in the offseason. They wonder who's going to fill that void. We're still not quite sure who's going to fill that spot at left tackle.
I'd expect Desmond Harrison, the undrafted free agent of the Browns, to get that start at left tackle. He's got the athletic profile you want in a tackle. And I'm talking with Lance Zierlein, who writes the NFL.com draft profiles and is really an offensive line expert. He said on talent alone, he would have given Harrison a 6.0, which is an immediate starter in the National Football League.
Is that a 6.0 out of 6?
It's a 6. I don't know what the scale is, but that's an automatic starter in the NFL. And so Harrison's a guy who had some off-the-field issues, which is why he went undrafted. Has been a model citizen since he's been here. And I think had he been able to go at the start of training camp, once they pulled the plug on Sean Coleman, he would have been the first guy up. He wasn't available then, but he's come in, he's done a great job, and people need to remember, the Browns have been practicing for the Steelers, at least the starters, for a couple of weeks. So there's been ample time, if that's the direction they wanted to go with Harrison and get Bitonio back where he's so good at left guard.
I'm all about numbers and scouting reports and everything. It doesn't change the fact that this is a rookie starting his first game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a guy who last played Division II football. I know he was a Division I talent and all that, but this is a big step up, and he, by the way, missed some time in training camp too. Yep. So I am concerned about it. I'm not saying this guy can't be a great starter down the line, and maybe the Browns found a diamond in the rough and all that, but week one, you have not had your offensive line, all 5 of them, play together at all in training camp. And so that has to be somewhat of a concern.
It is. I think when you look at it from the standpoint of what Hugh Jackson's saying is, I want to get my 5 best offensive linemen on the field together. And taking a guy who might be a great guard and moving to him where he could be a pretty good tackle, they want to have that great guard there. And the thing that can disrupt an offense more than anything is interior pressure. You can help a tackle. You can put a tight end over there. You can chip a running back. I'll tell you what, if it was Austin Corbett, you're still starting a rookie, and Austin Corbett would be going against Cam Hayward. Yeah. Harrison's going to be going against Dupree on the outside as left tackle. I think it's maybe a matchup they feel more comfortable with.
Big benefit to shifting Bitonio back to his natural position. And Joel knows that, and Joel also knows that this is a young offensive line, but he says there's room for growth.
It was a big turnaround, and I think their whole goal is to win and put the best guys out on the field. And we've changed it a lot, but the locker room feels good. We have a good continuity this year. You know, having Terod in there, having Drew in there, having some of the older guys in there, it's been good, man. They kind of control that thing. But we have a lot of young energy, too. You know, we have some, I think, a good balance of vets and younger guys, and it's been fun. It's going to really be fun to go out there and compete for 4 quarters and kind of see where we're at.
Well, Desmond Harrison, you want to get prepared to play left tackle in the NFL. Good news. There's some guys in practice that he gets to go up against in Emmanuel Ogbah and Myles Garrett. The defensive line for the Browns, we're not worried about.
No, I think you feel good about the defensive line. Clearly, John Dorsey wasn't happy with the interior of that defensive line as it has been completely overhauled. But on the edges, you've got Myles Garrett finally healthy. You know, Myles Garrett's never gotten to go against Ben Roethlisberger because he didn't play week 1 last year, and Roethlisberger didn't play
He got to go up against him in the Shredder in the Office remake.
That's right.
But he hasn't gotten to go up against him on the field.
And I'd like to see him get that Shredder. You saw the way this team was able to generate pressure in the preseason. Ogunjobi's taken a big step, and there's a guy who will count as a linebacker who really plays defensive end, Jannard Avery. Yeah. They feel good about the pass rush that they can generate with 4, which means they can put 7 in coverage more often.
This is something that's going to help the secondary, too, which is kind of been revamped as well. We'll get to that here later. But I love the pass rush. I think Myles Garrett has the chance, guys, legitimately, to lead the NFL in sacks.
Absolutely.
There are a few guys in this league who appear to be unblockable, and I think he's one of them. I think he's in that Khalil Mack, that Bosa upper tier echelon of defensive ends, no doubt.
No, let's get to the DBs right now.
Okay.
That was a professional tease right there. You know a little bit something about the defensive backfield. This entire thing revamped this offseason.
Yeah, it all starts with Denzel Ward, the top pick out of Ohio State, who really gives Greg Williams the ability to have a lockdown corner on the outside, something that he didn't have last season. And it's a reason why I think they used Peppers in a different role to sort of protect their defense. But now you've got a guy that you believe can lock down any top receiver in the National Football League. So you take and lock that guy out. Then you bring in a couple of extra guys like Terrence Mitchell, number 39, who's probably going to start here opposite Denzel Ward. You got some veteran guys like Carey and Gaines. And then just the safeties overall, putting Peppers, I think, back at strong safety. I think that will be one of the biggest, most fun things to watch in the secondary, putting the guy in the box where he's more comfortable, letting him thump his pads a little bit more.
Yeah, 4 of the 5 starters are going to be new. The only guy that returns is Brian Body Calhoun as your nickel corner. And for Denzel Ward, hey, welcome to the NFL, Antonio Brown in week number 1. But you have a true free safety now. You have all the pieces in place. And we talked earlier about the pass rush. Coverage and the pass rush go hand in hand.
Yeah, and you know what? We're going to talk about another position revamped, one that we're really looking forward to. We're going to switch back to the offensive side of the ball. Carlos Hyde, a new running back room with Duke Johnson and Nick Chubb. Boy, this offense is going to be a lot of fun to watch. That's coming up next on the Browns Countdown. Welcome back to the Browns Countdown season preview. Jon Doss, Nathan Zegura, Dustin Fox. Guys, I feel like it's the overall theme of a season preview is revamped rooms, right? Only one holdover in this backfield, a couple of new additions, and that, of course, starts with Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, Carlos Hyde coming back to Ohio where he played his college ball, and I thought he had a great preseason, averaging over 5 yards a carry, running in a touchdown, and whenever the Browns wanted to establish that run in weeks 2 and 3 against the Bills and Eagles, Hyde looked dominant, running with power, and he also know he can catch the ball. We didn't see that much, but caught 59 balls a year ago.
I was excited for Carlos Hyde to come to Cleveland because I knew that he was going to bring some, again, stability to that running back room when you lost Isaiah Crowell last year. Then they go out and draft Nick Chubb in the 2nd round, who I think has a chance to become a special running back in this league. But I was so surprised, guys, in training camp and in the preseason games, how much of a purpose Carlos Hyde ran with. He looks like he's totally healthy. And maybe some of the issues he had in San Francisco were some injuries. I know he had a bunch of those kind of nagging issues, but he looks to be healthy now. And I'll tell you what, he is a physical, nasty runner. The stiff arm that he put on, I think it was Jordan Poyer,
former Brown.
Buffalo Bills, former Brown, in the preseason game was filthy. So I'm looking forward to seeing what 34 is going to bring to the table on Sunday against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
You know what I like what you said? You were excited when he came to Cleveland. This guy was a free agent, probably the most sought-after free agent running back on the market, and he decided he wanted to play ball in Cleveland. Of course, that was after Tyrod Taylor and Jarvis Landry came. But you like to see guys with talent choose the Browns.
Absolutely. Yeah, he fits in this AFC North. He's a physical guy, and I think he likes to come back here to Ohio where he had so much success.
There's no doubt. And it's a chance for him to start over. And he knows he's going to be the bell cow to start this season, and he knows that he's going to continue to get those carries as long as he is productive. And that's what Hugh Jackson's looking for out of this guy. And, you know, Crowell was a nice running back for them for a couple seasons. He has moved on. And this is now an opportunity for a guy like Carlos Hyde in an offense where I think they're going to want to establish the running game, especially with the way Tyrod Taylor plays as his quarterback and the offensive line, which has been a strength. Now we're still worried about the left tackle spot. But in general, the offensive line has been Nathan's not worried about anything. But the offensive
feeling good. Let's go.
He's feeling good today.
Well, kind of like the quarterback position, right? You got the one guy who you expect to be your starter, your veteran there early on in the season in Carlos Hyde, and then you got the future behind him in Nick Chubb.
Yeah, that's what John Dorsey did in just about every room. He brought in an established veteran with success success in the NFL and brought in that rookie. And Chubb ran in a touchdown in that 4th preseason game, getting the start. A physical runner, a guy who's got good speed, good burst. He is probably the future at running back, but gives you a guy that if Hyde wears people down can come in the second half and I think put away some games for you. And I love this backfield. The diversity of the 3 guys that you have here gives the Browns so many options.
Of course, the 3rd guy in that 3 guy gives them even more options because Duke Johnson, who got a big contract extension this offseason, he gives that Browns backfield something that Hyde and Chubb don't really give them.
He's the lightning to the thunder with those guys. And, you know, I could argue that he's one of the best pass-catching running backs in the entire league. But don't forget about the fact that he can run the ball. All-time leading rusher at the U. I mean, this is a guy who is a tailback. So let's not just write him off as a wide receiver or a guy who's just going to catch passes. Let's hand him the football at times.
Duke Johnson is explosive, always makes guys miss. He's got Stiff Arm Saturday, which is now Stiff Arm Sunday that he's come to the NFL that he throws out there.
Nathan's co-hosting that show, too.
Oh, I would love to
have enough shows.
I would love to host Stiff Arm Sunday with Duke Johnson. That'd be a good show, as you see one right there. But nobody's caught more passes or had more receiving yards as a running back since he's come into the league than Duke Johnson. And Todd Haley loves to use those empty sets. And I know people are worried. Hey, we didn't see Duke catch a pass in the preseason.
Yeah.
They're not showing it all in the preseason. You're going to see Duke Johnson catch passes, and I won't be surprised if he catches quite a few against the Steelers on Sunday.
Yeah, he'll catch a lot of balls. Circling back over to Carlos Hyde in his return to Ohio. News 5 sports anchor Derek Forrest has more on Carlos Hyde's return.
For Carlos Hyde, it's a return to the state of Ohio. A member of the Ohio State Buckeyes from 2010 to 2013. He's back to something he's very familiar and comfortable with.
Handoff is to Carlos Hyde. Cat around the edge and a big run by the former 49er.
Just giving me that opportunity to be close to my family. Also, you know, I just felt like this organization, you know, was going in the right direction with bringing in guys like Jarvis and Tyrod. So I feel like, you know, I can come in and contribute and, you know, help this team get on the right track.
But it's not a comfortable situation, trying to turn the culture and the team around from an 0-16 season a year ago. But he, along with others on this roster, take pride in being the ones who could turn it all around.
It hasn't always been good around here, so I definitely think the organization is turning things around, you know, definitely headed in the right direction.
For Hyde and the rest of the Browns, it all begins Sunday with a battle with the division rival Pittsburgh Steelers.
You know, we got our first test coming up this Sunday. That has definitely let us know where we're at, so I'm really looking forward to this Sunday.
And for Hyde, he comes into the game and the season with high expectations, but he knows if he can achieve those, it will bode well for the Browns.
I want to be the top rusher in the NFL. I think if I'm the top rusher in the NFL, then that means as a team that we're in a really good position, you know, on the winning side.
Hyde knows it will be a process to turn this team around, but he also sees the talent the team has and believes it is possible to change the culture. As for playing a home game in the state of Ohio for the first time since 2013, he says to expect him to throw up the OH for old time's sake. Guys.
You like that, don't you?
I love that.
Dustin. He said that to me in the locker room. He said, I'm definitely doing that in the first home game.
The IO right back.
From the guy who's going to carry the load on the offensive end of the ball to the guy who's going to carry the load for the Browns defense. The inspirational story on Christian Kirksey coming up next on Browns Countdown. Browns Countdown, Jon Doss, Nathan Zegura, Dustin Fox. Guys, we were really excited about this linebacking core for good reason. Of course, it's been a story over the course of the last couple of weeks. It has changed just a little bit.
Yeah, but you still feel very good about it. And your top 3 guys, Christian Kirksey, Joe Schobert, Jamie Collins, who we saw round back into shape and be able to get that interception. You feel great about them. Jannard Avery has come in as a rookie, a 5th rounder out of Memphis, and been a godsend to this team. He is a pass rushing specialist. We saw a sack strip fumble against the Eagles. Now, the depth behind those 4, that's where it gets dicey, because you thought Michael Kendricks was going to be a big piece. And we all know what happened with him. He's no longer here. James Burgess is out with a concussion. So they went out after the 53-man cuts and signed Tanner Vallejo from the Buffalo Bills, a guy out of Boise State a year ago. Played in 15 games for the Bills as a rookie, mostly a special teams guy, and that's where you'll see him contribute. I think he'll be active, but it's your big four that are going to have to carry the load for this defense.
It's wild. We thought, like, 2 weeks ago, the Browns could have one of the deeper linebacking cores, maybe in the AFC North.
Maybe in the NFL.
Maybe in the NFL, who knows? And then Kendrick's situation happens, and some injuries there along the way, and Justin Curry gets hurt, and he gets waived too. So you go out and pick up Vallejo, of course, adds to that depth. But still, your starters. You know, Schobert and Kirksey played every snap last year. Collins is now second year in the system, full year in the system, who was a Pro Bowler at one point for the New England Patriots. So I do think you are strong across the board. And the guy that you brought up that I'm so excited to see is Jannard Avery, the 5th-round pick out of Memphis.
And everybody else.
That I think is an absolute steal. He has stolen the show when he's been healthy in training camp.
Greg Williams raves about that guy, doesn't he?
Yeah, you look at him. I mean,
He's a thumper.
He is built unlike anything we've seen, maybe since James Harrison, but that was always harassing the Browns. He's short, but he's jacked. I was talking to him. He said he can't buy normal clothes because his biceps are too big and his thighs are too big. He's a beast. And when you watched him on
Poor guy,
tape,
can't buy normal clothes.
when you watched him on that tape opposite Myles Garrett, and that's where you're going to see him. He is a starter on this football team. When they are in pass rushing situations, he's going to play on the other side of Garrett. Ogba's going to slide in. He took a chip from a Pro Bowl tight end in Zach Ertz, threw him off with his left hand, bull rushed through Lane Johnson, one of the best right tackles, if not the best right tackle in the NFL, and then had the wherewithal to get that sack strip fumble. I mean, Avery is a guy that I think is going to play a big role for this team this year.
Of course, we were hoping, it's professional TV, we were hoping that Schobert and Kirksey were going to get a little bit of a breather this year, maybe. That might not necessarily be the case, but you know what? Christian Kirksey is no stranger to adversity, and News 5's Lauren Broom has more.
Hey guys, Browns linebacker Christian Kirksey is going into his 5th season with the Browns. He's been through some pretty tough times with the team, but he faced a far greater challenge than just wins and losses when starting his college career. That's Browns linebacker Christian Kirksey's dad, Elmer, proudly wearing a Cleveland Browns shirt.
My dad, he thought I was the whole world.
Wearing a Browns shirt would make a lot of sense, except Elmer never got to see his son get drafted by the Browns, and at the time, had no connection to the team whatsoever. He died from a heart attack before Christian's first season at Iowa.
I was lost. I'm not gonna lie to you. I had a lot of questions unanswered. I was confused. I went back home, and I didn't even want to play football anymore. Then I thought that, you know, my dad wouldn't want that. You know, he didn't raise a quitter.
Going to college as a 3-star recruit at 6'2" and about 185 pounds, the NFL was not exactly an obvious landing spot for him.
That's my whole life. I was always small. I was always, you know, oh, he's not going to make it. He's not going to do this. He's not going to do that.
Christian says his dad,
Kirksey, I told you he's aggressive.
who was a pastor, helped him get here.
He just attacks it.
For me, it's like you playing for something that's bigger than yourself. So, you know, I'm playing for my family, playing for my dad.
Stopped at the line by Christian Kirksey.
And when you play for something other than yourself, it makes you go harder.
But for Christian, who is now in his 5th season with the Browns, success is not just about how he plays,
Back. Yep. How you like your toy?
but rather how he lives.
So before my dad passed away, he told me to be strong and that he loved me. And to always treat people how you want to be treated and put people before yourself.
Thank you.
No problem. Don't cry. It's all right. It's all right. Merry Christmas. Thank you. It's all out of love. So I think that he'd be more proud of, you know, the things that I'm doing in the community, things that I'm doing with children. My God.
Whether it's on or off the field, Christian's journey has not been easy.
I've been David my whole life, you know, facing Goliath, whether it's my dad passing or whether it's other family members passing or, you know, just any other trials and tribulation in life. It's like I always overcame it.
Now, when people look at Christian, he wants them to see the man his dad raised him to be.
You like it? You know, I just want people to see me as a stand-up guy.
And thanks to a picture that once made little to no sense, Christian says even though his dad is not alive, he knows that he is still by his side.
I think I'm here for a reason. And I think my dad was actually wearing that shirt for a reason, just to say, you know, I'm always around you, I'm always here watching you. You know, Cleveland is the place that you should be.
Another sign that Kirksey says he got from his dad is his number. When he came to Cleveland, he was given the number 58, which was the age of his father when he passed away. Guys?
Just one of the really good dudes, not just on this team, but in the entire NFL. And whether he's playing for his family, his dad, his team, they're going to need him to play really well because the Browns' strength of schedule is one of the toughest in the NFL. We'll talk more about that coming up on Browns Countdown. Welcome back into the Browns Countdown. It's our 2018 Browns season preview. Jon Doss with Nathan Zegura and Dustin Fox. Guys, the AFC North seems like it's kind of wide open. I know a lot of people expect, of course, the Browns to be in the cellar as they have been the last couple of years. We don't necessarily expect that, but it seems like a wide open division.
Yeah, you got the cream of the crop in the Pittsburgh Steelers, but you have teams in the Bengals, which was a perennial playoff team a few years ago. They're struggling. The Ravens have missed the playoffs again, and when they had an opportunity to do that, when you think about the Bengals last year, the only fan base they got excited were the Buffalo Bills fan base when they knocked the Ravens out. Nobody in Cincinnati was happy with what they did, but they've got talent on both sides of the football. A.J. Green, Joe Mixon, Tyler Eifert with Andy Dalton, and then you know the playmakers they have on defense, but they just haven't really been able to put it together, and they continue to struggle up front offensively on that line. They tried to address it, but they've let too many good pieces go. Zeitler to us, Whitworth to the Rams last year, and that I think has been a big problem spot for the Bengals.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that this division is Pittsburgh and then a bunch of everyone else.
Yeah.
It's a hodgepodge of who's going to be second, third, fourth in the division. And I think the Browns are in the mix.
Yeah.
You know, great points by you on Cincinnati. I think they've got issues up front. Who the heck knows what Baltimore is going to be? They drafted a quarterback, so I think they may be at some point looking to move on from Joe Flacco. But in general, it's going to be an interesting year. Outside of, just in the AFC as a whole, outside of Pittsburgh and New England, who else is a lock to do anything? Like, I do think that there's going to be a ton of surprises this year, and the Browns could be, if they get off to the right start, a surprise team.
Absolutely. I would say the one team in the AFC, we'll talk about them because the Browns play them, the Chargers. I feel pretty good about what the Chargers are going to do.
I love him.
Love Phillip Rivers.
Feel good about the Chargers in the first half of the season or the second half of the season?
The entirety.
That always seems to be the issue with those guys.
The entirety
They can't put it together for an entire 17-week slate. Maybe they do it this year. How about the Steelers, though? You guys still think they're the team to beat in this division?
How could they not be?
Yeah.
They're the team to beat every single season. As long as Big Ben is their quarterback, they've got a shot to go to the playoffs and win a Super Bowl. That guy is that good.
What it's like to have
I don't care about Le'Veon Bell and all the issues there. You got that guy, 84. I think the top receiver in the entire league, led by Big Ben, and I think their defense is going to be much improved this year.
The one issue I have from them is on the back end of that defense. I think they are vulnerable to the pass. I think they're great up front, but Ryan Shazier, when he went out last year, their yards per carry allowed went from 4 to 5, and nobody covers the middle of the field in pass coverage like Shazier. So you think about the team the Browns face in week 1, they're without one of their 3 best offensive players and without one of their 2 best defensive players, and I think they could be a little bit vulnerable from that standpoint because I think Shazier covered up a lot of stuff, and you replace him with a guy like Jon Bostic, nowhere near the same kind of an athlete, but offensively, when you have
They
Ben
score so many points,
and you have Brown and
like,
Juju,
They do score a lot of points.
That's why they're great.
The best defense is Big Ben.
Absolutely.
Even if the AFC North is down a little bit this year when you talk about those other teams, that's good because the rest of the strength of schedule is pretty tough for the Browns. It's one of the top 5 toughest in the NFL, and that, of course, starts with a team they play in New Orleans.
Yeah, you start with that whole NFC South division. Yeah. The Saints could win the NFC. The Falcons could win the NFC. The Panthers could win the NFC. Those teams are all loaded, and I think that is a very difficult schedule. But I will go back to the year 2014. The Browns, similarly that year, were playing the NFC South, and everybody thought the Falcons and the Saints and the Panthers were going to be great that year, and the Browns ended up going to their best record in a long time at 7-9. So you never know preseason, but yes, it looks tough.
And we always talk about strength of schedule. Browns had the 5th toughest strength of schedule. That's based off of last year.
Exactly.
Yeah. Every year is
Sure.
It starts over. So who the heck knows what that stat means? Yeah, I get it. They play teams that were successful last year, but this thing's going to turn around this year, and every team's going to be different. But to the Saints, I love Drew Brees.
Yep.
Kamara.
Michael Thomas.
who
is your sleeper?
That's his thing.
One of the best receivers in football. Although, by the way, he's a Buckeye, too.
Well, it doesn't matter whether the Saints are good because Nathan's already said the Chargers are going to be maybe the best team in football, right?
Well, not maybe the best team in football, but this is going to be a good team that I think is going to win its division and have an opportunity to go out there and win the AFC.
Keenan Allen.
You've got Keenan Allen. You've got Melvin Gordon. You've got Phillip Rivers. You've got Joseph Bosa, a former Ohio State Buckeye as well. Casey Hayward at corner. They are extremely talented, and they drafted Derwin James, which I thought was an absolute steal for them. This is a great defense with an explosive offense. That's a good football team. They've got to put it together for old number 17.
Dustin, how about a team that's going to help kickstart week 1 here later on tonight? The Atlanta Falcons. They show up on the Browns' schedule this year as well.
Falcons, to me, are always a team that are going to be a tough challenge because you have Matt Ryan, who I think is one of the best quarterbacks in football, underrated, always underrated, I think. Julio Jones on the outside. And looking forward to this game tonight, by the way, against the defending Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, on the road at Lincoln Financial. But look, I love Matt Ryan. I love him coming out of Boston College. I just think that combination between Matty Ice and Julio, one of the best in football.
It took them a year to handle the loss of Kyle Shanahan. It did, the play calling. Now I think they got that better. You draft Calvin Ridley. This is a good, exciting football team with no weaknesses.
All right, the countdown continues. Remember, on Sunday from 11 to 12, that's live. Browns All Access at 10:30 as well. More on this matchup with the Steelers this weekend coming up here on the Browns Countdown Season Preview. Countdown is certainly on. We're 2.5 days away from kickoff of the 2018 Browns season. Jon Doss, Nathan Zegura, Dustin Fox. Nathan, not just this week, but all season long, where can you find the most Browns coverage?
All you got to do is go to clevelandbrowns.com. You can download the Browns mobile app. You can go to the Browns YouTube channel and follow them on all their social media platforms. Plus, we got Browns Countdown every Sunday at 11. We've got Browns All Access with myself, Bernie, Dustin, everybody getting in there with Hugh Jackson, the head coach of the Browns. So tons of coverage for you all year long.
Dustin and Bernie were really good together.
They're great together.
We're in the film room again this year on Browns Countdown.
And there's one thing that we know. People in Cleveland cannot get enough Bernie Kosar. Bernie will be there. Browns All Access at 10:30 a.m. Sunday. Then, of course, as Nathan said, we've got your Browns Countdown live from First Energy Stadium. Rain or shine. We promise. Well, maybe we'll be here.
I don't care about the weather.
We'll see just how much rain we get on Sunday.
Nathan's got his Gore-Tex ready to go.
I'm ready. I don't care about the weather. Loaded. I just want to see a win.
Last question. Are they going to break open the victory fridge on Sunday?
I believe so. I believe it's going to happen, and I'm happy I'll be in Gore-Tex for when that beer comes a-flowing.
I hope so. They did send me one, too. Did you get one?
I got one.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thirsty.
I got the chains on it.
Oh, I thought you meant the Bud Light. They sent you a Gore-Tex.
No, we got it all. No, we got the Bud Light.
Both.
We got the Bud Light, too.
For Dustin Fox, Nathan Zegura, I'm Jon Doss. Thanks for watching the Browns Countdown 2018 Season Preview. We'll see you on Sunday morning.